According to my faithful Timex, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I had my latest brain fart. I had been mowing my yard, and when I shut off the mower and put it away, I turned to my wife and said, "I'm going fishing." And she said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Somewhere. I will call you when I get there and let you know." All my fishing buddies and most of my friends will tell you that that's how I do almost everything. Everything is a spontaneous response to a sudden impulse. Everything's done on the spur of the moment, and that's what happened. So I headed out, and I ended up at a little creek that runs into the very upper end of Stockton Lake. I hadn't fished there for over a year and had no idea what was going to happen or what I was going to find. When I got to the lake, I was shocked at what I found. There was practically no water in the lake. It was so low that I had no idea where I was going to launch my boat, and it had been raining for the last couple of days. When I got across the bridge where I would normally launch my kayak into the water, I found that there was no water there. There was a muddy trail instead that people had been trying to drive down that had even fewer brains than I have. At first, I decided to go ahead and drive that way, but after a short distance, I decided against it. I decided to get out of my truck and climb the steep bank up to the old road that used to be the highway before the new highway and the new bridge was built. And I wanted to see if I could find an alternate place to launch or an alternate road to get down to the lake. I walked down the old highway far enough to verify that there were no alternate trails that I could use to get to the water, and decided that I'm going to have to come up with a plan B. So I turned around and walked back down to where the truck was to try to figure out what I was going to do. I decided that I would go back across the bridge and drive about a half a mile to where there was another road that ran into the old blacktop that used to come in from the other side of the lake. It appeared that most of the traffic, instead of following the old road onto the lake, was turning left onto this dirt road. And so I decided that that's what I ought to do. Suddenly, the dirt road began turning into a muddy road, just like the road that I had gotten on the other side of the lake. Suddenly it dawned on me that not only was I driving through all of this mud, but I was driving downhill. When I come out, obviously I have to come out driving uphill. As I went over the crest of this hill, there was a sudden glare, and I couldn't see where I was going, and I noticed that my truck was sliding sideways. Finally, I was able to regain control and get back on the main road, and I was able to pull in under the bridge where it was dry. When I got out of my truck and looked back, I could see that everyone else had been parking at the crest of the hill instead of driving under the bridge. I decided not to worry about how I was going to get out of here later. I had some fishing to do. So I loaded up the kayak and got ready to go. I caught those first two fish about 10 minutes after I got here, and then I fished well over 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, without getting another strike. So I decided to paddle on up the lake, up toward where the river comes into the lake. Well, this is where the little creek comes into the lake, and there ought to be some fish here, so I'm going to give it a try. Well, I just hung up and broke my lure off, and I had fished here for over 30 minutes without a strike. So I decided that since I had a 1 hour drive back home facing me and I wasn't sure how I was going to get out of here, that maybe it would be a good idea to head back. As I was paddling my kayak down the lake, I was reminded of an old country song called "Making the Best of a Bad Situation." So I decided I had to have a plan. What I decided to do was to try to turn my truck around, get all four wheels on dry dirt, and hit it as hard as I could, and hope I could control it on the way out. Here we go. Here we go. Well, I made it out. All that's left to do is to try to decide whether or not I'm going to tell my wife what I did.